Okay, welcome to the 7th lesson in the H module, which is the beginning of the HARP system, which is the backbone for the entirety of the course of Antidote. I'm so happy you're here. This is the last one of the H module. You've made it. This is always evolving, embracing continuous self-improvement and growth. So in this kind of wrap-up lesson, we'll talk about some strategies, lessons, and mindsets that you can adopt to further implement these strategies and tactics that we've talked about in this module here. So sit back, relax, and check out this quote from Noura. With the right mindset, we can't lose. We either practice what we've learned or we learn what we need to practice. So a huge part of this theme, of this lesson here is all about self-reflection and, really locking in on the mindsets, the strategies and the mindsets that you should adopt whenever you're trying to learn anything, whether it's habit building or anything outside of this. It's so important to develop the correct mindset because that truly is one of the big keys and one of the big lever pulls that you can take advantage of to learn anything faster. So I want to talk about the importance of adaptability and resilience really quick. The key to making everything that we have discussed so far work is the ability to adapt along the journey and overcome dynamic challenges. Dynamic challenges are challenges that may be different one day than they are the next. That is the point of being dynamic, and yourself as a student and as a person along on this journey has to be dynamic. So it is accepting that there are going to be challenges and sort of taking on the mindset of how much change needs to happen and at what points, and then most importantly, not getting discouraged. And I want to illustrate for you here a cyclical process that you can sort of visualize and think about whenever you're trying to learn something. So you have learn, apply, and grow. So if we go clockwise here, this is sort of the cycle that you want to be a part of. And this is sort of the cycle that happens pretty much at all times when you're learning a new thing. But I think just being aware of it is a huge part of any sort of journey, especially when it comes to self-development. And in this case, productivity and habit building, and ultimately being free from the shackles of your smartphone. The self-improvement process itself is iterative, and it's all about making tiny little adjustments that have big changes down the line. Each cycle results in improved systems and improved self. So when you're learning something, you begin to apply it, and that is how you grow. But it is between the transitions between learning and applying that things start to happen. Maybe you make a change here, and maybe you decide this needs to happen here. When you apply it, you'll also notice some different changes happening along the way. And as you grow, you might go back to the drawing board and think about things that you need to learn again. So allowing yourself to have these little green marks in your own journey is super key. It is probably the backbone of, or I suppose the most foundational reason of why people give up is because they lack the foresight and the awareness that this is how it's meant to be, and this is how it should be. This is how you grow most successfully. A huge part of learning and growing, especially in the realm of self-development, is resilience and the need to bounce back from setbacks. I think setbacks are obviously inevitable for any part of life, but when you're dealing with something as critical as self-improvement, which is sort of the thing that we're all inherently on, it is so important to be critically aware of setbacks and how they feel, and most importantly, the fact that they're going to happen, and sort of planning for that and allowing yourself the grace to bounce back or to maybe not have the best day, screen time wise or habit stacking wise, whatever it may be, allowing yourself to have those days and not beating yourself up about it, not saying, oh, I got to quit now because you had one bad day. Awareness is required to prevent sliding back into excessive screen use in this context. Even from being a creator, I think learning this process of learning, applying, and growing, if you're a creator and if you make videos, you probably have experienced something similar, but just that whole process of making anything, art or creating videos online, is so iterative. And the more you lose track of this process, the cycle here, the more frustrated and more difficult it becomes to show up every single day. And I definitely experienced that with posting videos every single day on TikTok and then Instagram as well. I've for sure experienced burnout and being discouraged with the thing that I truly want to do, which is help people through videos. But the more and more I'm aware of the fact that the world keeps spinning if I have a bad day or if I don't post, the more I feel okay about missing, or if I feel like I'm not having the best day, I feel, I don't know, almost relieved that I've allowed myself the space and the grace to not be perfect all the time. So just developing that mindset of perfect being a construct, and then also just being resilient in general is super key to having a successful journey, especially when we're trying to do something as big as be more mindful about our phone. Digital mindfulness is a continuous journey, not a destination. I want to really write that down here. I've said that so many times, but it's the journey. It is the journey. Goals are so finite that I said this before, but they're so end all be. Like that is the end of the road. A goal, accomplishing goals is great, obviously, but you have to remember that goals are finite. But when you start appreciating the journey and loving the process, that is when it becomes an infinite game, which is the best part about what we're doing here. So I want to talk about a habit scorecard as well. This is another amazing little thing you can do to always be evolving and being critical about your habits, not only the habits that you have, but the habits that you want to build. So a habit scorecard is an excellent exercise for reflection. It shows what needs work and what is working. So this is another idea from James Clear. He talks about a habit scorecard, and it sounds very simple, but it's very powerful. And the whole point is to write your daily habits in granular detail and then score them as positive or negative or neutral. So you got 3 scores here. We have positive, we have negative, we have neutral. And the whole idea is to go through your day and be critically aware of the habits that you have and write them down on one side of your card. So for example, turn on the light. That to me would be a pretty neutral habit. Not bad. Check your phone for 5 minutes. I would hope that you would know by now that that is a negative habit. Brush teeth. That is a positive habit. Walk to kitchen or make breakfast. Maybe it's neutral or maybe it's a positive thing. Probably just write down one. I'll call it a positive thing. And the last one here is turn on TV. Obviously, it's going to be different for you, and it's going to depend on what your habits already are. But go throughout your whole day writing down your habits on scorecards. You might feel like a crazy person because you're being so self-aware. But the more you do this, the more aware you can become of the habits that you have and then where you need to improve. To decide on a score, when you're giving a score, whether it's plus, minus, or equals, ask yourself the question, does this help me become the person that I want to be, right? So it's, again, when we're talking about goals and stuff, that is, again, a very finite destination. But instead of goals, you should be thinking about the kind of person you want to be. So rather than I want to be more productive and I want to reduce my screen time. That's an awesome goal to have. But the end goal, the ultimate goal should be, I want to be the kind of person that is as productive as possible at all times. So thinking about the kind of person that you want to be, and then looking at your habits through the scope of does this habit help me become that kind of person, is an awesome way to decide on plus, minuses, or neutrals. The goal is to observe here and not to judge, right? Don't criticize yourself for faults. It's not the end of the world if you have, like a little minus, or if you have a couple minuses in your scorecard. The goal here is to just become a little bit more aware. Don't praise yourself for success either. Like this doesn't mean you beat the world, right? This is just becoming a little bit more aware of your habits, just so that you can start to attack areas of your life and habits that you have that need work. This can be an awesome and helpful way to break down your day. Filling out a habit scorecard for each one of the sections of your day, like the morning, after work, after dinner, and the evening, is super critical for becoming a little bit more aware and knowing the habits that you have and knowing where you need to improve. So that is the habit scorecard. You can build one super easily for yourself. It doesn't even have to look like this. It can work for your lifestyle however you'd like it to, but that is the general idea of a habit scorecard. Next, I want to talk about growth mindset here. You may have heard of growth mindset before. It is simply the mindset that is more tuned towards growing. It's so simple, but there's so much nuance to it. It's easier said than done, but keeping ideas of constant growth at the top of your mind is key to continuing to make progress in the right direction. So I just want to go through this here. This is a pretty standard, I don't want to call it standard knowledge, but this I feel like is a presentation or a mindset that highly effective people know of, or if you're anywhere near the productivity space and self-development space, you've probably heard of it. So I'll just go through it here. Failure is a learning opportunity. These are the things that, if you have a growth mindset, which we all should, these are the things that are important to keep in mind. So failure becomes a learning opportunity. This is a hard one for me, especially because I take things so personally, and that probably has a lot to do with my past and how I grew up and the habits that I developed growing up. But failure is a learning opportunity, and it's an awesome time for you to reflect and adjust and talk about that cycle that we talked about before, the learn, apply, and grow, right? This is a cyclical process that happens over and over whenever you're learning a new skill. Whenever you fail, that is where growth takes place. So looking at it less as a fail and more as an amazing opportunity for you to grow a little bit stronger is a huge part of the growth mindset. The next thing here is valuing effort over outcome. That has everything to do with what I said before of loving the journey. And that's something that I have to remind myself of constantly, right? It's not necessarily about the end destination. It's how we're getting there. And it's falling in love with how we're getting there. Valuing effort. And valuing all the work that you're putting in to get towards something. That actually is the reward. That is the feeling of success that you should be taking into account whenever you're working towards a goal that you've set for yourself, or if you're trying to just be a little bit more mindful about your journey towards a more productive and self-developed self. So just valuing the effort that you're putting in and not discounting that, because that is so important, and that is more than half the battle. The next one here is being open to new experiences. This is something that I love. There's so much value in prioritizing being uncomfortable. And I suppose not maybe physically uncomfortable, but being in a situation that you don't find yourself in normally, and allowing yourself to struggle a little bit with a process or with something that you're working towards, and learning new things. Hopefully with this whole course, you've been open to these ideas that I've presented, that I've been working on for pretty much my entire life, and especially in the last few years. Being open to new experiences and new thoughts and new ways of thinking, and new methods and new tactics and new strategies. Just allowing yourself to be open to that, and to not adhere so tightly to the things that you think you know, and rather being open to new ways that could be very successful to you. So being open to new experiences. Continuous and patient learning. This is a huge one. And I just want to highlight the word patient here. Patience is such a I want to say lost art, but that's not the right word. I feel like it's so lost on at least the generation that I'm a part of. I don't want to be that guy, like I was born in the wrong generation, but I feel like the internet in general, not just smartphones, has sort of conditioned us. I mean, it has conditioned us to forget about patience and forget about how valuable it is to not only work at something for a long, long time, but to not receive instant gratification so constantly. Patience and working through something at a slower pace is amazing. Cal Newport, in his book Digital Minimalism, talks about this idea of slow media, which was a movement decades ago, where it was sort of a counterculture in response to things like television and radio, how there's so much information at all times. The slow media movement prioritized reading and experiencing things for yourself. So if you can kind of adopt not necessarily the slow media approach, but just the slower approach to things, and realizing that instant gratification doesn't always mean instant success. And in fact, the slower and the more slower and steady you can be at something, the better off you're going to be, and the better off you're going to feel in the long run. And the last one here is leveraging feedback. And this is one of my favorite ones too, because it is like the verbal way you get better, right? Someone giving you feedback, whether or not it's from the right person is a whole nother story, but just taking feedback in general and taking it to heart and not being offended by it is a huge part of the iterative process of growth. And in our case, productivity, mindfulness, and self-development. So if you can give yourself feedback, that is one of the best feedbacks you can give yourself. That comes from the habit scorecard, from habit tracking, from habit stacking, and just being critical and more aware of the habits that you have and the habits that you want to have. Whenever I get feedback, especially as I work in the creative field, it is a learned process to not take it as a personal attack on who you are, especially as I'm making videos for clients, or if I'm making videos for a brand, or even if I'm making videos for myself and someone tells me something that they didn't like about it. A lot of times my first and initial response is to kind of put up a wall of defense and say, well, I did it this way and I did it because I wanted to do this, yada, yada. But if it's coming from the right person and if feedback is given in the right way, all of a sudden it can become less of a personal attack and more of just instructions on how to get better. So understanding feedback, not only from other people, but in this case, yourself, if you can give it to yourself and allow yourself the grace of not, beating yourself up over a failure. That is one of the most amazing ways that you can begin to leverage feedback for the better. So those are some growth mindset tips. These are all things that you should just keep in mind, not only for productivity and mindfulness, but just in general. I think these are awesome little mindsets that you can bring throughout your day and just keep with you in the back of your mind. So that is how to maintain a growth mindset. Here's some tips for reflection and adjustment. I'll just go through them pretty quickly here because I feel like I've said these on pretty much every lesson. There's some practical strategies to help you reflect during your digital mindfulness journey and adjust along the way. And I think that is such a huge part that I do feel like writing it down. Adjust. Oops. Along the way. It is fine to adjust along the way. The things that I'm telling you right here don't mean that you have to go out and implement these perfectly every single time. They have to work in your life, right? I don't know you. If I could, I would love to know every single one of you watching this. But it's impossible to fit exactly what I'm saying exactly in the ways that it's worked for me. You have to find the ways and really the parts of what I've been saying that work for you best. Maybe you don't use 100% of this course, but at least you now have the framework to reference back to whenever you'd like. And maybe you pick and choose some of your favorite strategies, methods, and tactics to implement into your life. And that is completely fine. That is the correct way to do this course. If you think that you're meant to implement, and this doesn't even just go for this course, this goes for anything in life. If you think you're meant to do, especially in the realm of self-development, something exactly the way someone else does, you're going to set yourself up for failure because everyone is different and everyone's situation, most importantly, is different. So finding ways to adapt it to your own lifestyle and fit them into your own routines and schedules is the best way and the way you can most effectively make things work for you. So adjust along the way. That's the first part. The next one here is regular self-assessment. That can be done, again, through the habit scorecard and specifically reviewing the habit scorecard. But just having moments in your day or your week where you can look back at your progress. If you're tracking your habits in a journal, really sitting with that and even journaling about it and letting yourself look at how much you've done or how much you haven't done and making a plan for moving on to next week. Super important. Regular self-assessment is super key to being more aware. Mindful observation, again, that totally goes hand in hand with the habit scorecard, right? Just being a little bit more aware of your day, who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. And that leads into the next part. Use a journal. I'm a huge fan of journaling. There's science to back up that writing things down by hand makes them stick in your brain a little bit better. So if you can use a journal throughout your day, just to write down not only your thoughts, but your feelings and the habits that you want to track and keep in mind, super key. Same with the habit scorecard, just keeping that in your back pocket and recording as you go throughout your day. Being open to change, we mentioned that, right? Being open to new situations, allowing yourself to be in a situation that maybe isn't very comfortable. Getting out of your comfort zone is huge. And then lastly here, I'm going to use a different color, small steps, right? This is such a key part. You know this if you've followed along in this module. Small steps is truly the answer to success, right? Compound interest, and the compound interest effect has so many so many positive effects down the road. Liam, my business partner who we built this course together, he said an awesome quote a few weeks ago. It was that life happens slowly, then all at once. I'll say it again right here. Life happens slowly and then all at once. And that is such an amazingly true statement, because when you're starting small and when you're endeavoring to do something as big as change your life and change your screen time habits, it'll start by feeling very slow and like nothing is working. But then all of a sudden time will fly by and you'll look back and it'll be 6 months and you'll be a completely different person. That is if you implement these strategies and tactics in your own personal ways. So life happens slowly and then all at once. Start small. That is the most important part of anything that you're learning. So congratulations on finishing the H module. This is a huge accomplishment. This is not a small win, but a big win. So congratulations. I super appreciate you sitting through this, hopefully interacting and taking some notes. Before you go and move on to the next module, I want to talk about the journal, the guided journal, excuse me. Go to the Always Evolving, Embracing Continuous Self-Improvement and Growth, and talk about what does a growth mindset mean to you? Remember when we went over what a growth mindset was 5-10 minutes ago? Think about the growth mindset and ask yourself what it means to you. What parts of the growth mindset framework do you really resonate with and why? Next question is, how can you see yourself regularly reflecting and adjusting your habits to further support your progress? Are there days or are there moments throughout your day that you have maybe a little bit of free time to where you can look back on the day that you've had or the day that you're about to have and critically adjust the things that you need to adjust? Are you carrying a habit scorecard with you? Are you going to? Do you want to? Think about ways that you can regularly reflect and adjust, because that is the most important part of the process. Remember, self-improvement, self-development is an iterative process. So be super aware of the things that you need to change and the things that are going well for you. The next question is, how important is adaptability to your digital mindfulness journey? What techniques will you use to remain adaptable throughout your journey? And lastly, use this habit scorecard template to start reflecting on your current habits. So that is the H module. You've now finished it. You've gone through 7 lessons, hopefully of valuable information that you can take and apply to your own life in your own unique ways. I cannot wait to get to the next module, which is the A module, the second part of the HARP system. It stands for Altering Your Environment is Essential, and we'll talk about all the strategies and tactics you can use to alter the space that you're in, not only in here, but physically as well, to take another step towards digital mindfulness. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next module.